Hans Christian Andersen is one of my favorite historical figures. Not only did he write some of my favorite childhood stories, but he was a dramatic, colorful, and fascinating person. While it's easy to dismiss some of his plots as sensational or overly morbid, because in some ways they were inspired by things both deeply personal to his own life, as well as cultural and academic interests of the era. My name is Liz, the Cosbrarian. Over on TikTok, I've grown a wonderful following of folk and fairy tale fans who like their stories weird, dark, funny, sexy, or otherwise a little off-kilter. Thus, the series Fucked Up Fairy Tales with Liz started. One follower called it Wishbone for grown-ups. I like to think of it as Jim Henson's Storyteller meets Drunk History. For now, my YouTube videos will concentrate on compilations of tales I've told on TikTok. Today's compilation is made up of my two favorite fairy tales by Andersen. The Tinderbox and the Snow Queen. Interested in my sources or in need of a content warning? Check out the show notes in the description. But most of all, welcome to
Fucked Up Fairy Tales with Liz.
Ding! The Tinderbox is such a balls-to-the-wall, insane fairy tale, and I adored it as a kid. So much so that I desperately wanted Disney to give it the animated musical treatment. Well, it didn't get that, but it did get this YA sci-fi twist by Lou Diamond Phillips. Color me intrigued.
Fucked Up Fairy Tales with Liz. Ding!
Once upon a time, a soldier was returning home from duty when he was stopped by a very old and very frightening-looking witch. "Hello, good fellow. How would you like to make a fortune?"
I'm all ears.
"I need you to pop down inside this tree for me. Under the ground there, you'll see 3 chests. One is full of copper coins, the next silver, the next gold. Now each of these chests is guarded by a terrible-looking dog. The first with eyes as large as teacups. The second with eyes as large as mill wheels. The third with eyes as large as a tower."
Eyes as large as towers? On a regular-sized dog?
"He has a very strong neck. Now, the checked apron I'm wearing is the key to getting that coin. Take it with you, lay it on the ground, and place the guard dog on the apron. It will chill out and let you take as many coins as you can fit in your pockets."
Okay, so what's in it for you?
"All I want is the old tinderbox that my grandmother left down there. It's a family heirloom, you see."
Interesting.
The soldier followed the old witch's instructions, and everything was just as she said. Dogs with giant eyeballs, check. Chests full of coins, check. Apron that doubles as melatonin for dogs, check. The soldier gathered his weight in precious metals, grabbed the tinderbox, and went back above ground. "I'll take that tinderbox, thank you."
Not so fast. This has to be more than just a basic tinderbox if you don't give a shit about the rest of the treasure down there. What's the deal with it?
"None of your business, that's what."
Well, if you don't tell me, I'll cut off your head and keep the tinderbox myself.
"I'm calling your bluff."
And I'm the Queen of Hearts.
Off with her head it was. This is the man, 8-year-old Liz? This is the man you wanted to see animated and singing the songs of Howard Ashman. Voiced by Boy Meets World heartthrob Will Friedle. Wait, do I still want this? The soldier put the tinderbox in his pocket, left the witch decapitated on the side of the road, and headed into town. Once there, he shacked up in the best inn available and began living the high life. He dressed up to the max, made a bunch of shallow friends, and learned all the upper crust's secrets. Say, I heard this town is ruled by a royal family with an incredibly beautiful princess. How do I lay eyes on her? Well, that's impossible. She's kept locked inside a copper tower. Only the king and queen are allowed to go in and out. Seems like overkill. Supposedly, there was a prophecy upon her birth that she would marry a common soldier, and her parents freaked out. Interesting. Well, the soldier didn't get any closer to the princess, but the more money he spent and gave away, the closer he got to poverty. Before long, he'd lost his room at the inn, lost his fancy clothes, and lost his shallow friends. He ended up living in a leaky attic without even a penny to light a candle. It was then that he remembered he had that old tinderbox. You can imagine his surprise when, upon striking the flint to steel, the dog with eyes as big as teacups appeared before him. "What do you wish of me, master?"
Some of those coins you're hoarding?
Easy peasy lemon squeezy."
Interesting.
The soldier learned he could summon all 3 dogs. He just struck the tinderbox 2 times for dog number 2 and 3 times for dog number 3. Though how a dog with eyes as big as towers fit into a tiny attic apartment, I'm not sure. Once the soldier had his debts paid down and his pockets full again, he began to rise back up in society. And once he had a regular income, if we're calling it that, he set his sights higher. Say, copper dog.
At your service.
I know it's past midnight and all, but do you think you could bring me that pretty princess?
Of course I can, you big creep. Here you go.
She is gorgeous. So gorgeous. I am compelled to kiss her. The next morning, the princess had quite the story for her parents.
I had the strangest dream last night. I dreamt a dog with giant eyeballs carried me off while I slept, and that a soldier kissed me.
A soldier? A common soldier?
He was pretty well dressed, but I suppose other than that and the weird dog, he was kinda basic. White, non-consensual kissing, probably named Chris.
I'll find him, and I'll kill him. The soldier once again called on the dog with eyes like teacups to kidnap the sleeping princess. This time when the dog set out with the girl, he was followed by one of the ladies of court. The old woman watched the dog carry the princess into the soldier's house, and she had an idea. She marked the door with a chalk cross so that they could quickly identify it the next morning. But on his way back out with the princess, the dog noticed the mark. So he put a cross on all the other doors in town in the same way. I found it. Here's the door that houses the rogue.
Are you sure? Because I've found the door with the cross on it. Wait, the house next door is exactly the same.
God damn it, we've been foiled.
I have another idea.
The next night, the queen tied a little bag of silk around her daughter's neck. The bag contained finely ground buckwheat. When the young lady fell asleep, a small hole was cut in the bag. And sure enough, when the princess was carried off by the big-eyed dog, a path of flour led right to the soldier's door. And this time, the dog's big ol' eyes didn't catch the ruse. The soldier was imprisoned by the royal family. He learned through the grapevine that he was to be hanged the next morning. So things were looking pretty hopeless as the sun rose. The townsfolk hurried to the gallows to enjoy the spectacle. One little boy was running so fast his shoe flew off and hit the door of the soldier's cell. That gave the soldier an idea. You, boy!
Who, me, sir?
Yes, you. Run to the big house downtown where I live and grab me my tinderbox.
The one as big as me?
Yes. Wait, what?
Sorry, sir. Wrong story.
If you do it, I'll give you 4 shillings, but you must be quick. The boy retrieved the tinderbox for the soldier, who stowed it in his pocket right before he was led to the gallows. The king and queen were there to witness the execution, along with all of the judges in town and the town councilors. And the soldier spoke up right as they went to lay the rope around his neck. Surely you won't do me in before granting me one last request. One final smoke from my pipe? I'll allow it. Once, twice, 3 times a puppy. The 3 dogs and their impossibly giant eyes appeared. Save me, boys! Do whatever you can! Don't let them hang me! The dogs ran after the judges and the town council first. They seized the bureaucrats and flung them into the air. And when those folks landed, they were dashed to pieces. Then the dogs annihilated the king and queen in the same way. And understandably, the entire town was fucking terrified of the soldier, though rather impressed.
How about we make you the king now, sir? Yes, marry the pretty princess. Please don't break our bodies with your scary dogs.
The dogs let the princess out of the copper tower. You'd think upon witnessing the bloodbath, just streets littered with broken bodies, that she'd be pretty freaked out.
What's going on?
My dogs murdered everyone and the town made me the king, so now we're getting married.
That means I'm the queen now? And I don't have to stay locked up in that tower?
Yes and yes.
Sounds good to me. What's your name?
It's Chris.
I knew it!
The wedding festivities of the princess and the soldier lasted an entire week. And presiding over the whole affair were the 3 dogs. And by Hans' account, they stared down all of the guests the entire time.
You dropping off a monetary gift for the newlyweds there?
Yes?
For how much?
I was going to throw in a 20. A 50? 100?
Oh my god, thank you so much.
The end. So I have some questions for a little discussion.
Do you think everyone being dashed to pieces was meant in like a fantastical way, like they were all made of glass and just exploded? Or do you think the cobblestones of Copenhagen were stained with blood for ages? Speaking of things literal or metaphorical, what about the dog's eyes? Do we think they were just very big, or do we think, like, seriously, the size of mill wheels? Most importantly, how great would that movie be? Is Will Friedle available? Can he sing? I know we can't get Ashman, Lin-Manuel Miranda? Dreamcast the Disney version in the comments.
The Snow Queen was one of my favorite fairy tales as a kid. I think it was probably the first sort of coming-of-age type story I'd ever read. I loved that almost all the characters were girls or women. I adored that Gerda went on this long, arduous journey and basically saved the day with the help of those ladies. And all I wanted was for Disney to make an animated feature based on it. So you can imagine how fucking infuriated I was that I got this trash instead. Where in the tiny print it says inspired by the Snow Queen. Was it? Was it Disney? All I know is you took a story with like 7 female lead characters and a dope lady villain and gave me a story with a pair of sisters surrounded by and occasionally obsessed with men. No evil magic mirror. A reindeer that didn't talk. And like no feisty robber girl? What the fuck? If you were mad about that too, or if you're just curious about Hans Christian Andersen's The Snow Queen and the story that could have been given us, please stick around for my rendition here on Fucked Up Fairy Tales with Liz. Ding! Where sometimes I tell you a fucked up fairy tale, and sometimes I just fuck up a perfectly nice one. Our story begins. So one day down in hell, look how yassified I am! There was this truly twisted hobgoblin who made a magic mirror with a particular power. The mirror only reflected back the most worthless and ugliest parts of a person or scene, and it eradicated anything that made it good or beautiful. He was very proud of his invention, so he took it to the demon school where he taught. Okay, class, let's see an example. When I shine the mirror on the Matterhorn, in arguably one of the most beautiful landscapes on Earth, what do you see? That's right, it just looks like a giant dick. Put it in front of a beautiful woman, all she'll see are her flaws. Cute puppy? No! Smelly, drooly parasite. His demon students were so excited about the invention that they took it on a world tour. And they laughed as everything that we consider beautiful was showcased as its most depraved self. And then they had the idea to bring it up to heaven and see what all those stuck-up angels looked like. But as the demons flew with the mirror higher and higher, condensation caused the mirror to slip from their grasp and fall to Earth, where it shattered into 1,000,000 tiny pieces. Fragments of it blew around the world. Particles so tiny that if a person had the bad luck for one to fly into their eye, they now saw what the mirror saw. A real shit-colored glasses situation. And what did the hobgoblin think when he learned that his greatest invention had shattered to pieces and was now permeating the eyeballs of everyone on Earth? Classic! And it is a couple of fragments from this mirror that incites the action of our story. Now, in a very busy little town, 2 kids lived who were of very humble means, and they were so close they felt like siblings. They lived opposite to each other over a little alley, and their houses were so close that their mother's flower pots grew into each other, and they even had a little garden growing over their shared water pipe. When it was warm, this is where you would find Gerda and Kay laughing together. And in the winter, they'd find each other out in the snow to play, or Kay's grandmother would tell them stories inside. See the snowflakes coming down like a swarm of bees. Does the snow have a queen like bees, Grandma? They do indeed. The Snow Queen flies where the swarm is thickest. And while she often parades through the town at midnight, she doesn't stay long and returns to her home in the dark clouds. Can the Snow Queen get inside? Only let her try, Gerda. I'll put her on the stove and watch her melt. Of course, one night when Kay spied the Snow Queen through his window, he could only stare at her in awe. She was beautiful and grand, but made of glittering ice. Hello, sweet boy. I was totally kidding about that whole stove thing. One day, the following spring, Gerda and Kay were reading together on the rooftop garden. It was the day the demon's mirror shattered, and Kay was right in its way. Read me the next part, Gerda. Oh, ow! My heart hurts like it's been pierced. Oh no, Kay, are you all right? Ugh, something flew in my eye as well. Let me look. No, it's okay. I think it's gone now. Geez, Gerda, stop crowding me. The mirror fragment that had flown into Kay's eye now began to color his perception of the world. And the fragment that flew into his heart began to showcase his own ugliness. Kay, you didn't have to push me off so rough. Ugh, shut up, Gerda, you fucking crybaby. Kay, you can't say fuck. We're like 6 years old or something. Well, that's still too old for this friggin' picture book. I'm not a fucking baby. Ugh, who even planted this pathetic garden? These flowers are wilted, and it's full of worms and spiders and crap. Kay, it's a garden. That's what they're supposed to be full of. Worms and spiders and poop. Leave me alone. Yes, sirree, Kay turned into a real asshole. He'd interrupt his grandmother's stories. He'd make fun of her and imitate her to pass her by. In fact, he'd imitate whoever he could if it would get a laugh out of someone. And people for some reason found this clever, which only encouraged him more. In fact, cleverness became very important to him, and he also became obsessed with science and mathematics and precision. Check out the snowflakes through my magnifying glass, Gerda. Aren't they perfect? So neat. Without flaw. Unlike those flowers you're so obsessed with. They're really pretty. Ugh, I'm gonna go sledding with the boys. So the way that Kay and the other boys would sled was that they would tie their toboggans or whatever to a cart or someone's sleigh and get driven along. So when Kay spied a very fancy white sleigh with a driver encased in white fur, he claimed it as his own. But the driver didn't stop when they went around the block. Kay went to loosen his sled, but every time he did, the driver would look back at him and give him a nod, and Kay would feel an obligation to stick around for another run. The sleigh drove faster and faster, and the snow came down harder and harder, and Kay began to grow frightened. He cried out, but he couldn't be heard above the racket. He tried to say a prayer, but he couldn't think of any, only of his multiplication tables. Finally, when the snowflakes grew as large as chickens, the driver pulled off to the side of the road. As they stood there, Kay saw that the cloak and the cap that the driver was wearing was actually made of snow. They dropped the snowy garments, and before him Kay saw the fabled Snow Queen. "Why are you so scared, child? You seem cold. Let me wrap you in my fur." "Your fur is made of snow, ma'am." "Shut up and come here." Thanks. This is great." "You're still cold? Let me give your forehead a little kiss." "Your lips are like icicles." "Oh, my math, am I gonna die?" The Snow Queen showered Kay with more forehead kisses, and the more she kissed him, the more icy his heart became. The memories of his home and family and Gerda faded from his mind. "Oops, no more kisses for you, or I might kiss you to death." "Cool. Hey, did you know I can do math? And not just like baby stuff, like fractions and shit. In my head!" "Aw, that's cute. Tell me all about that big grown-up math you know." The Snow Queen flew them over the forest, over the sea, above wind rushing, and wolves howling, and crows screaming, past the moon and into the sky. And Kay slept through the journey at the feet of the Snow Queen. Gerda was completely distraught at the disappearance of Kay. All she knew is that he hitched his sled to the sleigh of some weirdo and drove out of town. She convinced herself he'd drowned in the river that was near their school and commenced to mourning. But the following spring, as she wandered by the river crying, "Kay is dead and gone," the sun spoke back to her. "I don't believe it." "No, he's dead and gone." "I don't believe it either." "Huh, you know what? I'm gonna put on my new red shoes, not those ones, Hans Christian Andersen fans. And I'm gonna go to the river and ask about him, since nature seems so keen on talking to me today." So Gerda kissed her grandmother goodbye while the old woman slept, donned her new shoes, and went to bargain with the river. "River, did you drown my friend? I'll give you my fancy new shoes in exchange for him." Gerda hucked her shoes in the river, but the current brought them back to her because the river had not taken her friend. The girl didn't get the message, though. She saw a boat on the shore and decided to get into it, head to the bow, and throw her shoes from there to get him out further. But the boat wasn't fastened to shore, so when she yeeted her shoes out there, the motion caused it to loosen from its spot and get carried away. She was a little freaked out at first, but then she figured the river was taking her to Kay, so she nestled in for her shoeless journey. After a few hours, they arrived at a huge cherry orchard, where a very colorful little house stood flanked by live toy soldiers. When Gerda called out a greeting, a very old lady wearing a flowery sun hat emerged from the house. "You poor idiot, how did you come all this way on that rough river?" Gerda told her story and asked if Kay had been around.
Well, I haven't seen him, but he's bound to come along sometime. Come and make yourself at home, dear. The old lady fed Gerda and sat her down to comb the girl's hair. You know, I always wanted a little girl to take care of. You should stay here. Now, Gerda didn't intend to stay there for long, but she also didn't have much choice in the matter, for the old woman was a witch. Now, she wasn't a mean witch, though she did put a magic spell on Gerda while she combed her hair, so that the girl would forget all about her home and her intentions in being here. So I guess she wasn't exactly a nice witch either, but this isn't a Hansel and Gretel situation. No one's gonna die. Now, the witch sensed from Gerda's story that roses were going to trigger her memories of home. So she sunk her own rose bushes deep into the earth. And Gerda lived with that witch in ignorant bliss for a very long time. One day, however, she spied a rose that the old woman had neglected to bury. The rose on the woman's flowery hat. Wait a sec, why are there no roses in your garden? Gerda ran outside, and at the sight of no rose bushes there, she began to cry. She cried right on a spot in the garden where a rose bush formerly stood. And she had those magical fairy tale tears, you see. They hit the earth and caused the rose bush to spring back up. And the sight of the roses brought all her memories back. Roses, can you tell me where Kay is? Is he dead? Nah, we were chilling down there underground for a while and we didn't see him there with the rest of the dead. This news lightened Gerda's heart, and in hopes of getting more news, she began interviewing every single goddamn flower in that garden. Tiger Lily, have you seen Kay? Do you hear the drums? The woman's song of mourning. The priest cries as the Hindu widow lays herself on the body of her husband amidst the funeral pyre. The flames rise as she thinks of her son, the one who lit the flame. What? That's my story. Well, it's kind of a downer. How about you, Convolvulus? A beautiful woman stands in an old castle tower. She looks out over the road and cries, "Will he not come?" Who, Kay? No, that was just a dream I had. Well, that literally wasn't my question, but thanks for nothing. Snowdrop? A swing hangs from some trees with two little girls swinging. Their brother blows bubbles. A little dog runs up and barks. The bubbles burst. The end. Could use more conflict. Next. There were 3 sisters dancing in the moonlight. A sweet fragrance in the wood attracted them, and they followed it. Smash cut to 3 coffins, in which the 3 maidens lay, gliding across a lake. Do the maidens sleep, or are they dead? The scent of flowers and the toll of the bell tells us. None of this is helpful, and some of you are trying too hard to be goth. The roses are the only ones talking some sense. Buttercups, how about you? An old lady sits in a sunny courtyard. Her granddaughter kisses her, and the world is full of gold. The golden sun, the golden flowers, the golden kisses, the golden maiden. Well, now I just feel guilty for leaving my grandmother. How about you, Narcissus? Me. I should have seen that one coming. That one's on me. All right, I am out of here. Gerda rushed out of the old witch's house and ran as far as she could. Suddenly, looking around her, she realized that time had not stopped for the rest of the world while she was at the cottage. Oh my goodness, it's autumn? I have wasted so much time. I have no shoes, no Kay, and I think I hate flowers now. Gerda sat down to rest, and here at last she would meet someone who would finally point her in the direction of her friend. Maybe. Hello, little girl. What are you doing traveling the world all alone with no shoes? My name is Gerda, and here's my life story. Blah, 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 blah. And now I'm here. Have you seen a boy named Kay in these parts? Maybe. Though if he's the boy I think he is, I fear he may have forgotten you for the princess. Let me tell you about her. The crow told Gerda about a nearby princess who was so clever she read every single newspaper in the world, but was smart enough to forget every single word once she'd finished. Hear that, journalism? You burnt! Recently, the princess had decided to marry. I'll only marry a man who knows how to hold a conversation. Oh, also, he's got to be handsome. I want me a man with a brain, but I want that brain in a good body. I know all this because my girlfriend is a tame crow who lives at the palace. It's not nice to brag. It's not bragging, I'm citing my sources. Anyway, a huge crowd of suitors came to woo her, but they were all dumbstruck by the glamour and beauty of the princess and her court. Is this going anywhere, or are crow stories like flower stories? Patience. On the third day of wooing, a young person walked up. He had a great head of hair, but his clothes indicated someone of lower means.
Yes, that's Kay!
Excellent! Carries a knapsack, right?
Don't you mean his sled?
Maybe? I don't know. I didn't get a good look. What I do know is the boy arrived, looked at the long-ass line, and declared, "Well, this seems like a huge waste of time." Then he just walked on in ahead of anyone else. His boots were creaking, which everyone knows is humiliating, but he didn't give a shit. The confidence on that young man.
Kay did get new shoes recently. The evidence is mounting.
Anyway, the boy walked right up to the princess on her throne, which is a huge round pearl, by the way, and she looked incredible. I would marry that woman myself if I wasn't a crow.
How does your crow girlfriend feel about that?
And let's get back to the story. Anyway, that cool cat knew the perfect thing to say. I'm not here to woo you, but I would love to hear the wise words of the cleverest princess in the world.
Oh yes, that's definitely Kay. He is so smart, he can do fractions in his head. Will you take me to the palace, little crow?
And just how do you think some shoeless kid is gonna get in the palace?
Kay will let me right in once he knows it's me.
Alright, we'll check with my girlfriend.
So the crow's girlfriend, who I am creatively calling Girlfriend Crow, helped Gerda sneak into the castle through a back door. Now, I think it's important to note here that Girlfriend Crow is clearly too good for Forest Crow. Girlfriend got herself a good job, she is loyal, she is crafty, she deserves more than Forest Crow's wandering eye. Anyway, they all conferenced in the palace hallway.
So my boy told me all about you, and I'm obsessed. Hold the lamp and we'll sneak in this hallway and no one will know we're here.
Actually, we appear to be being followed by a bunch of ghosts on horses?
No worries, girl. Those are just the prince and princess's dreams. Good thing, too, because we are totally gonna sneak in and watch those motherfuckers sleep.
What? They reached the royal's bedroom, and it was a magical little place. The princess and her man each had a bed that hung from the ceiling in the shape of a lily. Gerda ran right to what she presumed was Kay's bed and peeked over like a creep.
Ah, strange girl in my bed.
Oh, you're not Kay!
Who the fuck's Kay?
What the hell is going on here? Oh man, y'all, here it comes, my life story again.
Blah, 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 blah.
Oh, you poor thing.
I'm honestly not sure how you could have possibly mistaken me for your friend. But you know, I feel for you.
Okay, before we deal with all of that, I have to give it to these two crows for bringing you to us. Would you two like an elevated position here at court?
Does it come with a pension?
Oh, trust me, the benefits are very good.
Well, take it.
The prince gave Gerda his bed for the night, and the next day they dressed that girl head to foot in silk and velvet and invited her to stay at the palace for a while. All I want are a pair of boots and a small horse-drawn carriage so I can find my friend. All right, but I'm also going to throw in a nice warm muff for the cold. The carriage is going to be made of gold with the palace arms on it. You're going to get a whole slew of footmen, and oodles of cakes and cookies stored in the seat. That's how we do it here! The Forest Crow and Girlfriend Crow had a quick wedding, and Forest Crow escorted Gerda out of the palace to her new ride. Girlfriend Crow stayed home because she had a headache from eating too much. Hans, are you really going to fat shame my girl? Get the fuck out. Everybody was so sad to part from one another that they fucking cried. And with that, Gerda rode off to find her Kay into the thick, creepy forest in a bright golden carriage, completely open to any band of thieves that might take a fancy to it. Here we get to my favorite chapter of Hans Christian Andersen's The Snow Queen, because it gets pretty suggestive. Maybe not intentionally so, but there's just something about it. I think you'll get it. I'm going to assume that enough time has passed at this point that Gerda is now a teenager. The timeline in this tale is inscrutable. But by the end, she has grown up, so... So Gerda and her royal posse are riding the golden horse-drawn carriage through the forest, and the sight of such a glamorous ride attracted the attention of a band of robbers. They were not about to let a literal golden opportunity like this pass them up. Those bastards attacked Gerda's posse, murdering the footman and the driver. They pulled Gerda out of the carriage, where a bearded old lady looked on her with hungry eyes. But no sooner had the old woman drawn her knife when she cried out in pain, because her own daughter had jumped her and bitten her ear. No! This girl is mine. She'll be my new playmate. I'll strip her of her pretty dress and accessories, and she'll sleep in my bed. But first, we're going to take a carriage ride together. Drive us, minions! As they rode in the carriage together, the robber girl slid her hands around Gerda's waist. Just be nice, girl, and no one will kill you. You're so pretty. Are you a princess? I am not. This is the part where I tell you my entire life story up to this point. Blah, 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 blah. Well, I won't let the rest of the gang murder you. If you make me angry, I'll just do it myself. Thanks. And then the robber girl slid her hands into Gerda's muff, which was so soft and warm. They arrived at the robber's place, which was a cottage goth castle, complete with ravens nestling in the crevices, giant bulldogs running around, and a big old cauldron of soup on the fire. You'll sleep with me tonight, and I'm going to introduce you to all my animal friends. Those are my 100 pigeons. Here, kiss one. Kiss my pigeon. And this is my reindeer. He's such a sweetheart. I love tickling my knife to his throat just to see the fear in his eyes.
Please get me the fuck out of this place.
Hilarious. All right, Gerda, time for bed.
So, are you gonna hold on to that knife all night?
I always sleep with a hand on my knife. So tell me again about that little idiot you're trying to save. The robber girl fell asleep to Gerda's prattling, with her arm around Gerda's neck and the other hand on her knife. But Gerda was too terrified and wired to sleep. She listened to the rest of the robber gang drunk around the fire. But she was finally about to get some actually useful information. And it came from the robber girl's hundreds of pigeons. Hey, listen up. We've seen your boy. He got carried away by the Snow Queen. That bitch blew her icy breath on our brood and killed a bunch of us off. So you go get her, girl. Can you tell me anything else about her? She was probably traveling up to Lapland, the iciest part of the country. Ask the reindeer, he knows a lot more about that. Oh, I love Lapland. All that open, sparkling land for a reindeer to run free. No one sliding their knife across your neck for a laugh. The Snow Queen does frequent Lapland, but it's her summer home. She winters all the way up near the North Pole.
Oh, Kay. My darling Kay.
Shut the fuck up about your idiot boyfriend or I'll slide my knife into your sweet little body. I am processing a lot of feelings right now. In the morning, Gerda told the robber girl what she'd learned from the animals. And the robber girl seemed a little bit in denial. That sounds like a lot of bullshit to me. But then she had a change of heart and she turned to the reindeer. Do you know where Lapland is? It's where I was born and raised. All right, Gerda, we're gonna get you out of here. The men are all gone for the day, and my mother's gonna drink herself into a stupor after she's done beating me up. Maybe you should leave too? That sounds rough. Nah, she does it out of love. Nope, don't like that. So much to unpack. Oh, reindeer, I'm gonna miss threatening your life so much. You make such funny faces when you're terrified. But no matter, you need to take Gerda to Lapland to rescue her little idiot.
Bless the Lord, it's a brand new day.
Have your boots back, Gerda. I'm going to keep your muff because it is so beautiful. Have I mentioned what a beautiful muff you have, Gerda? But you can have my mother's giant mittens. Thanks.
Oh no, I'm gonna cry again.
Oh, honey, I don't like to see you cry. Here, take some ham sandwiches and eat your emotions. Take good care of my girl, reindeer. And the reindeer carried Gerda away, through great forests and howling wolves, and up past the beautiful northern lights. So the 6th chapter of The Snow Queen is called The Lap Woman and the Finn Woman. Lap people is an outdated and derogatory term for a group of indigenous folks called the Sami, the only indigenous group local to Northern Europe. What's apparent in the tale's text, and what I confirmed through some scholarly research that is linked through my bio, is that the characterizations of both these women is steeped in colonial perceptions of indigenous people. Gerda visits the Sami woman first. She lives in a little low hut that Andersen describes as pitiful. They're very othered in this tale. She doesn't get a lot of time. She instructs Gerda to head further into Finland to deliver a message to the Finn woman. The Sami woman writes this message on the side of a dry piece of cod and sends them on their way. The Finn's woman description also suggests this sort of primitive nature. She lives in a very small, hot little hut and barely wears any clothing. Rather than talking to Gerda directly, she pulls the reindeer aside once she's memorized the message from the Sami woman to give him the news. All right, I consulted my scrolls and such. It looks like the boy has been enchanted by some stray pieces of demon mirror, and he will be trapped in that enchantment until those pieces can be removed. Can you give Gerda some magical item to help that along? What Gerda already has is more powerful than any item I can offer her. her innocence and purity. If she cannot wield those to break Kay's enchantment, then there is no hope for him at all. Now the Snow Queen lives 2 miles from here. You may carry Gerda to the berry bush at the end of the property. But you must leave her there and trot right back to me. Don't give her any hints on how she's to do this. Why all the mystery? Purity and innocence. They send Gerda out in the reindeer so fast that she leaves behind her boots and mittens. When they reach the cherry bush, the reindeer helps Gerda dismount and gives her a kiss goodbye. So, what am I about to walk into here? Gotta go. Gerda begins her ascent to the Snow Queen's castle. The northern lights are making the land glitter, but in a rather mechanical way. And large, sentient snowflakes begin assaulting her, for they are the Queen's guard. So Gerda stops and recites the Lord's Prayer, watching the steam puff from her mouth as she does. As she prays, the steam puffs grow and magnify into angels. An entire army of angel soldiers is created, and they flank Gerda for protection. They also warm her hands and feet and give her the strength to take off to the castle. And it's at this point in the story that we finally see what Kay's life has been like since he was abducted by the Snow Queen. So we know the Snow Queen is a villain, but like any great villain, she has an incredible palace. Made up of over 100 rooms and fully formed by snow, it can see the northern lights from all angles. In the middle of it was a frozen lake with perfectly symmetrical lumps of ice leading up to the Snow Queen's throne. The downsides are that it's cold as fuck, and there is nothing there for a boy-turned-young man to amuse himself with. Neither toy nor neighbor. Kay was now basically an ice human, having been kissed so often by the Snow Queen that he was now numb to the icy pain. He too has presumably grown up during this time and is now a teen or young man. His one amusement is arranging shards of ice in a game that is somehow part puzzle and part word game. If you can find the word eternity among your ice puzzle, you shall be your own master. I'll give you the whole world, and not only that, a pair of skates. But try as he might, Kay couldn't crack the word. What am I missing? All right, well, I'm off for my annual volcano cruise. Even an icy bitch loves a resort. Have fun with your Fisher-Price or whatever. Ta! Right then, Gerda burst through the doors of the castle. Raging winds swooped down on her in an attempt to hold her back, but she counterattacked with the word of God. Hallowed be thy end, bitches! If it's not totally apparent, I don't go to church much. She rushed to Kay and threw her arms around his icy neck. Okay, at last I found you! But he sat frozen and impenetrable to her words and embraces. So she fell on his chest and did what she did best. Kay! Hot tears wormed their way into Kay's heart, thawing it and washing away the piece of glass inside. Kay looked at Gerda, and she sang him a hymn from their childhood. Roses bloom and cease to be, but we shall the Christ child see. Roses? Kay's own tears washed away the splinter in his eye, and at last he could see everything clearly. Gerda, where have you been all this time? Wait, where have I been? Where are we? Why is it so cold? Where'd all this body hair come from? Okay, I'm so happy. The palace and all the snow and ice seemed to share in their glee. The puzzle Kay had been tolling over these long years burst into the air and danced around. And when it landed, the pieces formed the word that promised Kay his freedom. Aw, sick! Ice skates! Gerda kissed that boy all over to deactivate any Snow Queen iciness. And they took each other by the hand and left the ice palace. So Gerda, how is grandmother? Great question, Kay. Hopefully alive! Oh look, it's my reindeer friend! Hey Gerda, I brought my wife and she's got an udder full of milk for ya! They met some more old friends too. They stopped by the Finn woman's hut to warm up and get directions home. They visited the Sami woman's hut where she gave them some clothes and fixed up a sleigh. The reindeer escorted them all the way to where the icy lands gave way to green forests. And in that forest, the robber maiden stood waiting for them. She was riding the golden carriage, and she was all gussied up in a red hat with pistols in her belt, ready to make it on her own in the world without her shitty abusive mom. She and Gerda reunited gleefully, and the robber girl turned to Kay. So, this is the guy. Tell me, Kay, that's your name, isn't it? Do you deserve a woman who would literally travel to the ends of the earth for you? Probably not. Oh, robber girl, you're so silly. Tell me about all the other people we met in this story that you definitely know. Well, the prince and the princess are traveling. And Forest Crow? He's dead. What? Yes, and his sweetheart is wearing a bit of black yarn around her leg to mourn him. She puts on a real show, but it's obvious that it's just that. Really, Hans? You gotta keep slandering my best girlfriend, Crow? Gerda and Kay told the robber girl all the shit that had gone down. Well, it really did all work out, didn't it? Cool, well, I'm out. I'll say hi if I ever want to slum it in your little village. Bye, bitches! And that girl went off to conquer the world. I'm imagining a spin-off series where she adopts the girlfriend Crow as a sidekick, becomes a sharpshooter, of course, and learns she'll be more successful at getting a girlfriend if she doesn't threaten to stab him. Lastly, our childhood friends, now grown, walk hand in hand home. As they arrive, church bells pealed. They found their grandmother haloed in the sun, reading verses from the Bible. Except ye become as little children, ye shall in no wise enter into the kingdom of God. And as Kay and Gerda looked into each other's eyes, they understood the lyrics of their favorite childhood hymn. Roses bloom and cease to be, but we shall the Christ child see. And as they sat together, grown in body, but childlike of heart, it was summer. The end. Wait, did they die? Fucked Up Fairy Tales with Liz. Ding! Thanks for watching my interpretation of the Snow Queen. Despite some major religious overtones and some problematic representation, I maintain that if we fix some of those issues, a closer tale to this would have been a much better Disney movie.
Thanks for watching Fucked Up Fairy Tales with Liz. If you've enjoyed yourself, please like, comment, and subscribe. If I reach 5,000 subscribers here on YouTube, I'll start making original content just for you. Want to listen to my tales in podcast form? Then be sure to check out my Patreon. Supporters there can upvote tales I tell, get behind-the-scenes info, and listen to Fucked Up Fairy Tales, the podcast. My next compilation of tales will air on October 4th, and will focus on spooky stories. I'll see you then for the next Fucked Up Fairy Tale.
Fucked Up Fairy Tales with Liz. Fucked Up Fairy Tales with Liz.